Hi everybody, welcome back to Woman Carrying Man. I'm Jake. Nadia and I didn't have time getting around to the movies we wanted to watch this week, but today I want to talk about one of my favorite filmmakers ever and kind of dive into his filmography and rank his films in order of how much I like them. Robert Altman is probably best known for MASH, not the TV show, the movie that spawned the TV show. I don't like MASH very much, but I love Robert Altman's career, and that was really the jumping off point for his whole career. That was a huge smash success when it came out. I remember I had this idea about filmmaking that like the best filmmakers were those who could exert so much control over the frame, over what was happening on screen. Filmmakers like Kubrick, David Fincher, someone like Robert Altman. Every movie I heard or read about of his, I went, yeah, that doesn't sound appealing to me. You know, it sounds like chaos, which, you know, to be fair, there is an element of chaos there. There is a kind of documentarian feel about his movies where you get a sense that he is just capturing what happens to be going on, what these actors are creating. I love the humor and chaos in a Robert Altman movie that doesn't always work. It's kind of like a gambling thing. Gambling, that's, I think, one of the themes here. You have the players, you have the pieces set up, you have the story, get it all together, you see what happens, and sometimes it doesn't work. There are some of his movies that are not very good. But when it works, it's like, it's magic. It's pure magic. Again, I haven't seen all of his movies. He made so many movies, guys. Like, he made so many movies. So many masterpieces, like genuine masterpieces. I'd say my top 5 Robert Altman movies, I would also call some of the best movies ever made. Like in his time, he had a very like rocky career. There were times when he was, you know, praised to high heavens in the 70s, when he was like at the top of the world, and then when he had absolutely no clout, nobody wanted to work with him in the 80s after he made Popeye, and then, you know, he went back to that critical acclaim, you know, in the 90s, and he passed away, I think, in 2006. His last movie was A Prairie Home Companion. Interestingly, Paul Thomas Anderson was like the insurance director on that movie in case Robert Altman died. So he was like there on set. There's like a direction of these type of like big, I don't know, I think of them as like these big tapestry films of all these interlocking characters, all, you know, all this stuff happening all at once. I think it starts with Nashville, it goes through Shortcuts, and Shortcuts spawns Magnolia. But let's go through his list. So I've seen about 19 of his movies. All right, so at the bottom of the list, I'm putting Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean. Now, a lot of people like this movie, but it came at a time in Altman's career that was in his flop era, as the kids like to say. This was after the huge financial disaster of Popeye, starring Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall, a movie I actually kind of like. It did not do well financially, and you know, the 80s weren't really a time for filmmakers like Robert Altman. You know, you think of the 80s, it's more conservative era, it's more you know, big action. It is based on a play. It's basically a filming of a stage play, and it's kind of like reining in his style and trying to do these smaller things. I don't like the movie's subject necessarily. It's a weirdly transphobic movie, you know? Like, there is a trans character in the movie that I get that maybe for its time it was a well-depicted character, but I just really not a great watch. Number 18, The Company. This is like the other end of the spectrum of Robert Altman, where it's like just in a totally impressionistic story, recordings of ballets and like dancing, and you know, maybe it's better than I'm giving it credit for. I found it kind of hard to get through. It was a little boring, and you know, it didn't have enough story to carry it all the way through. It felt a little thin, and James Franco was not very good in it. Number 17, MASH. Some may be upset that I'm putting this so low, but times have changed. I think MASH is kind of it's not an easy watch. I think for modern audiences, it's pretty I think it's pretty racist and sexist. Like, it's very anti-authoritarian, which is good and entertaining, and I think that's what Altman does. A very anti-authoritarian kind of guy, but this just comes across as just really juvenile. I can't say anything about the show that it's fun. I haven't really watched the show MASH. At the time, I could see that as being like, it was like revolutionary. But this was like the Altman style. This is, you know, he's known for the overlapping dialogue, and this is where that all started. So, I mean, you got to give MASH credit, but number 16, Brewster McCloud. So, I need to see this one again. I didn't like it that much watching it the first time. It's very very like broad comedy, almost slapstick. It's one of those things where it feels like you kind of had to be there. It was just weird. Number 15, Popeye. Popeye is actually pretty good. Robin Williams gives a great performance, and Shelley Duvall is perfect. And the music, okay, I mean, the music is written by Harry Nilsson. The songs are Harry Nilsson's. Like, these are great songs, you know? The Punch Drunk Love song, you know, he loves me, that's Popeye, and I didn't know that until I saw it. Got some great, like, silent movie slapstick humor. It's like a great family movie. It doesn't have the best, you know, third act all over the place as Altman movies are, but I mean, the fact that this was the movie that destroyed his career for 10 years, it's insane, you know? It's a fun movie. Number 14, Gosford Park. Gosford Park is a good movie, just not my cup of tea. It's there's a whodunit story, some good performances. This was like a big, like, late period Altman. I think it was nominated for Best Picture, and Best Director and that sort of thing. You know, people really saw this and were like, wow, Altman is back. But, you know, he was there all along. It just, for some reason, this one got the critical attention. Amazing cast. I mean, the casts that he works with, it's just incredible. I mean, in any movie, I think actors loved working with him because he would just let the actors do their thing and kind of make the characters themselves. Number 13, Thieves Like Us. This is one of his smaller movies. A very unique kind of Depression-era crime story. Remember being a little underwhelmed. I thought it was a little I thought its reputation was a little too high for what it was. And offbeat, sad, unpleasant. You know, I think that's maybe the thing, is that it feels very real. Number 12, Secret Honor. We're back to his flop era in the 80s. This was an adaptation of another play, I'm pretty sure. And Philip Baker Hall plays Richard Nixon, just talking to himself the whole movie. And it's great. Keeps the momentum going and keeps you fascinated in just like the ravings of this lunatic. I think Richard Nixon is just like fascinating character, you know, like personality, a person who was, you know, president of the United States, who was this insecure and delusional. It's a good movie, yeah. Number 11, A Wedding. The lore behind this movie is that after Nashville came out, he was at like a press conference, maybe at like the Cannes Film Festival, and they were asking, you know, what his next movie is going to be, and he's just like, A Wedding or something like that. Like, it's just going to be like a big wedding, and it's going to be double the cast, you know, because Nashville, like, its publicity was like, oh, there's like 24 main characters and they're all on screen. He's like, this one's going to be, you know, even more than that. It's going to be double that. Really messy. This is a big movie that's all over the place. Like, I really love its ambition and it's really fun to watch. The one thing I have issue with is that it can go too big. It just gets too big, too broad, over the top, where it starts to feel just farcical and loses that groundedness, I think. I think it's a movie that more people should see. More people who like Robert Altman should see. A Prairie Home Companion. His final movie, Lily Tomlin, Meryl Streep, Lindsay Lohan, I guess an adaptation of like a radio show, Garrison Keillor, A Prairie Home Companion. Look, I didn't know about any of this when I watched it. I just thought, you know, this is just a story about whatever these people who work in radio, and it basically is, and it works as that. And I really enjoy this one. I think the characters are grounded. So many amazing performances. It all just comes together in a really beautiful way, and I think it's kind of a perfect final movie dealing with death, dealing with the end of the road. Number 9, Buffalo Bill and the Indians, or Sitting Bull's History Lesson. This is another example of like Altman's very cynical and very 70s look at, you know, American history. This stars Paul Newman. Wow, he gives a terrific performance. I mean, this is about a real historical situation, but again, maybe a little too depressing, definitely for audiences of that time, but problematic, you know, today. But like, what a movie, like a really bold. It is unpleasant. Wow, are there amazing set pieces in this. Number 9, California Split. I was lucky enough to see this on the big screen. A great movie about gambling. It's entertaining. I saw this with like a packed crowd in LA. People were enthralled, except for one particular scene, a very transphobic scene that has aged. That's like the one that's the one thing that sucks about this movie, is that scene in particular. But the rest of the movie, just, oh my God, it has this pace, this magnetism, these two friends just kind of like spiraling, who are obsessed with gambling. And it gets you in that kind of like Uncut Gems way. This isn't as stressful as Uncut Gems, but it gets you in that way where you start to like vicariously feel what that kind of like passion is. Really just like touching in a way, just the kind of friendship these two men have, you know? And yeah, I can't wait to watch this movie again. Number 7, The Player. I absolutely love The Player. I don't know. I feel like ever since Criterion did a release of this, I feel like a lot of people have been watching it, which is great. Great skewering of Hollywood, starring so many, just like 90s. It's like the most 90s movie ever about Hollywood, and I absolutely love it. I love how flat Altman makes everything look, because he always used those long lenses and zooming and panning, and like the camera's always moving, but everything always looks flat. And there's just some beautiful shots in this movie. The critics will say he's lazy with his camera. I think that's dumb. If I'm going to show someone an Altman movie for the first time and I want them to like, I know they'll have a good time, I show them The Player, because it works just conventionally as a thriller, as a mystery, cynical take on Hollywood, but very entertaining. Number 6, Vincent and Theo. A film that was also a miniseries. I've only seen the film. I don't know how the miniseries is. I think it's just a few episodes. But the film has Tim Roth playing Vincent van Gogh, and it blew me away. I had no idea. You know, every movie and like media depiction of Vincent van Gogh is so bathed in this like sappy, like sentimental look at who he was, and the beautiful tragedy of his, mental illness, right? His depression was why his art was so amazing. God, I love that this movie went in the opposite direction. Yeah, he made great art, but he was really burdened with, with his mental health problems. He, the messy, angry nature of his relationship to his brother and how they tried to make a living, through his art. Sad and unpleasant. And it's like, if you're going to show someone a movie about Van Gogh, I feel like this is the one to really do it, and being honest about art and about mental illness. And it is just as much about his brother Theo as it is about him. That's what's so great about it. You have that dynamic, and oh my God, it's so sad. All right, so my top 5, I can guarantee these are some of the best movies I've ever seen ever. The list is probably interchangeable at this point. It's totally personal preference of what I think is great. So here we go. Number 5, The Long Goodbye. The revisionist LA detective story adaptation of a classic Raymond Chandler novel, which I've never read, but it stars Elliot Gould. He's investigating some crime. I don't even know what the crime is. And I've seen this movie so many times. It's just like, it's not as important as just the vibes, the look, the feel, like the ocean waves. It is such a mood. It has a couple disturbing moments. Hollywood about LA. I don't know if there's been a better one, that just captures this washed out aesthetic, this dreamy, sad world. Number 4, Shortcuts. You watch Magnolia, you watch Shortcuts back to back. I love Shortcuts. I think that Magnolia is like Shortcuts done by Martin Scorsese. Different like short stories, and they're just this amazing adaptation. Like, how did they do this with Raymond Carver? I love Raymond Carver, and they have all these short stories put in here. Best cast from the 90s you could possibly ask for. It works so well. Thankfully, I got to see this on the big screen as well, because I'd watch it, on DVD, but until I saw it on the big screen, I didn't realize how dark this movie is, because it seems so like unassuming. You have these like cute little stories, these like quirky characters. Relentlessly, we hit these moments, we hit these beats, and then it just keeps moving on, and it's just kind of, the sadness is not so much of what happens, but it's just the fact that everything just keeps moving on. It is one of those movies where it's like, you got to just like sit down for a night of just 3 hours, just bathe in this messy operatic movie. But also it doesn't feel super pretentious. It feels to me, I feel like Magnolia has a pretense about it that kind of irks me. I like Magnolia, but this is a big movie you're about to see. This is like really dramatic and intense. Like, this Shortcuts is just like, yep, here you go, like, look at this, and then it hits you. Number 3, Three Women. Totally different Altman film. This is his David Lynch movie. it's amazing that this works, you know? It is absolutely amazing that he's able to do something like Shortcuts and also The Long Goodbye and also Three Women, which attempt at like a feminist work, I think, but it's so dreamlike and surreal. I think that something so like magical about this movie, and I've seen this movie so many times, and I there's still more to it. It's like I don't even want to try to explain or understand it. Like I come away with something new every time, and I think that it's fascinating. But more than anything, I think it's one of his most beautiful movies with this incredible art direction set in the desert. I saw this in one of the Altman screenings with a crowd. Hilarious. I had no idea how funny this movie was until I saw it with a group. You know, you watch it at home and you're like, yeah, this is weird and off and kind of like has these weird things. But you see it with a crowd and it's just like unbelievably hilarious until, you know, again, the sad moments, which Altman can do so well. Number 2, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. Everything you want from an Altman movie, but those, you know, at the core of it is that music, that atmosphere, the Leonard Cohen songs. I love Leonard Cohen. It's just a perfect movie. It's so perfect and has so much to say about like the American dream, capitalism. You know, that was Altman's subject all through. You know, all of his movies are so like American and about America and about the ironies of the American dream. And this movie is just like this and my number 1 pick are like some of the perfect movies about that. Warren Beatty, amazing performance. That character just lives on. And Julie Christie, like it is the revisionist Western. I don't care what, you know, anyone else says. This is the revisionist Western. I don't think anyone's done it better. Maybe Unforgiven is up there, but the colors, the shots. The first time you watch it, you think like, what is this? You know, it has a kind of grimy feel, something washed over you, some totally new, unique experience. All right, so here we are at number 1. The obvious choice is Nashville. You don't even have to like country music to love this movie. It is so effortlessly charming. It makes you feel like you're floating. I mean, Altman movies where there's a bunch of different characters, when it hits that perfect rhythm, it feels like you're floating over these characters in this world, kind of like this omniscient viewpoint, just getting to experience life and in all of its like comedy and tragedy. You can watch this movie and like follow one character and just kind of like fall in love with them in a new way, or another character fall in love with them. And there are the musical segments. And I think it's funny that country musicians and people who loved country music hated this movie, you know, when it came out. They're like, oh, our music's better than this. And it felt like Hollywood was like looking down on the country music scene, on Nashville and all that. But I think you watch it now and it just feels like such a love letter to that world. It's a very Hollywood movie in that sense, because I think there's this parallel between LA and you know, filmmaking in that world and the country music world in Nashville. Takedown, but also a celebration. I've come to love the music, you know, like literally I'm pretty sure a lot of the actors wrote their own song, considering there are some fantastic songs. Like there's some cheesy songs in this movie that are supposed to be that way. But the amount of actually fantastic songs and the performances, like, it blows my mind. If you're going to watch any Altman movie, I mean, you know, the list is so long of how many great movies he made. Just gravitate towards, like, what you're interested in. There's so many ways to get into his work, and so many masterpieces, literal masterpieces. That's my take on Robert Altman. I don't know. Maybe I'll get Nadia to watch some Altman. I mean, I'll probably show her The Player. Let me know if you like any Robert Altman movies. Thank you for watching, everyone, and listening to me rant. All right, talk to you all later. Bye-bye.